it's been a joy working with you. In your previous roles in the Peace Corps, where you were working at multiple jobs, including deputy and recruiting and all of the other nuts and bolts of the Peace Corps. And then when it came time for a permanent Peace Corps director, it didn't happen. So you stepped in as acting, carrying on the work that you had done in the previous positions with the knowledge and the enthusiasm that you carried through all of those jobs. You brought it in as acting. And then the wisdom of the administration, Biden and others, came forward. And they said, this woman is doing a terrific job. She was a Peace Corps volunteer. She knows what it is to be serving around the world in very difficult and important positions. And she ought to be the next director. And so you were appointed. The Senate, in what was for them a hasty action, about a year, went and completed your confirmation. And I did have the pleasure of being at your swearing in and setting you sail down the path as the director. Look forward to your comments tonight. Look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead as we bring the Peace Corps back to full service and continue to work on not only the authorization, but the annual appropriations. Carol, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Congressman. And hi, Patty. Your name isn't up there, but we see you back there. Really appreciate both of you, your steadfast, stalwart support. You are true champions of the Peace Corps in so many different ways. And your story about the Indo-PACOM and folks there just brings me back to President Biden's comments about, as America, we need to show not only the example of our power, but the power of our example. And that is Peace Corps. That is Peace Corps. And there is tremendous demand, tremendous urgency around the world to get volunteers back out there doing what we do best. And we're making it happen. We're very excited. And I'll give you just a few updates. And I know Dan wanted to save a little bit of time for Q&A. I want to thank Dan Baker, John Lee Evans, all of the National Peace Corps Association staff and board members, including the newly elected board members, welcome, for this important gathering, but really for all of the work that you do every day. We have just such an amazingly committed, robust, active alumni association that is nothing like I've ever seen. And it just, every time I'm able to talk about the Peace Corps and the lifelong service, the lifelong commitment to the values and the value proposition of Peace Corps and how we engage with the world, it is just such a tremendous point of pride. And I know that I understand several of my predecessors are here with us tonight. So always walking, in the shoes and on the shoulders of giants. And just always great to be here with you all and all of the returned volunteers. Congressman Garamendi said we've got work to do. And that is absolutely true. And as I said, the urgency and importance of that work right now at this moment in time cannot be understated. This is a pivotal moment. It's a pivotal moment in history. It's a pivotal moment for Peace Corps. It is a pivotal moment around the world. And I think about this quote in the context of the theme, Maria Wright Edelman saying, service is the rent we pay for being. It is the very purpose of life and not something you do in your spare time. And that is what Peace Corps is about and what we carry with us and how we show up in the world. As we gather today and think about what's coming up, I really do want to challenge all of us to step into that future and to really answer the call to serve and bring that opportunity to the next generation in whatever way you can. We each have people in our lives, and what we have seen and what I have heard from people who are out there serving in the Peace Corps is that it just takes that one person. opening their minds, telling them about the experience, something they may not have ever known about or heard about. And once they did, they were enamored, some of them waiting several years to come back post-evacuation. There is a wonderful, wonderful volunteer cohort out there serving right now that is really incredibly committed. And, we are at a point where we are back in 57 countries, which is amazing. We've got a few stragglers that are facing non-COVID issues, places like Ukraine and Ethiopia and others that have had some other challenges that we're all well aware of, but we are working very hard to get volunteers back around the world and to build up that cohort. We are also looking at how we need to adapt, and I've talked about this in several different ways and at several different times, with this group and around the world. Peace Corps has a proven model of localized, community-led, person-to-person development that is able to reach the most vulnerable communities. We know that. We are good at it. We have honed this for the last 62 years. It is a model that has set us apart in so many ways from others working in international development. And now is our moment, as the entire field is looking to localization. Administrator Power has set aggressive targets, ambitious targets for USAID to get funding into the hands of local organizations, to bring the voices of underserved communities to the table, to look beyond, those people who might normally have access to opportunity and power. And we are in very important discussions with a lot of different partners to say, how do we leverage our strengths, leverage the magic of Peace Corps, and become an even more powerful force multiplier? How do we take that work to the next level to intentionally and systematically link what is the largest generation of youth in history with opportunity, so that we are not just teaching them English? We are working with them. We are identifying those real movers and shakers and getting them to the table and helping them to move into the next phase of their lives, to help address the climate crisis where it is felt most. And there are some really exciting initiatives that we will be announcing soon. I'll keep you waiting on what some of those are. But Peace Corps will be rolling out a new climate strategy. Each and every one of our countries is looking at how they can participate. We are with communities on the front lines of climate disaster. And young people in this country, as well as young people overseas, want to be a part of the solution. And we think there is tremendous, tremendous energy and opportunity for us to really do some work in partnership with other volunteer sending organizations. We signed an MOU with KOICA, which is the South Korea development organization, largely, or at least a great deal modeled off of Peace Corps, as well as JICA and others. So we're trying to think differently about where we fit at the ground level within a large community of actors, and how do we leverage what we do best. I also want to share that as I have traveled around the world, what I am hearing from leaders everywhere I go is overwhelming demand for volunteers. And these are countries that we have been in for some time, who have tremendous educational losses due to COVID, but also who are facing this youth bulge. And leaders are asking themselves, how can we create opportunity for young people? And what role can Peace Corps play? And it really struck me that when we talk about teaching English, We are not teaching English for the sake of teaching English. In those countries, English is the language of the internet. It is the language of learning. It is the language of business. It is a language of opportunity. And so I have had President of Benin asked me for 500 volunteers. Mongolia said they would take 1,000. They want a volunteer in every school. Just really tremendous interest, and not just for experts. The president of Benin really called out. He said, we will take your generalists because we see their enthusiasm, we see their passion, we see the hope, we see the spark that they bring when they are part of us and part of our country out in the villages where people may not have that hope. So, Congressman, I want to reiterate what you said. That is really an important part of the beauty that Peace Corps brings. So we are really striving to meet those demands in every way that we can, understanding that, again, it is a very, very tight budget environment as we return volunteers to service. As of yesterday, we now have over 2,000 volunteers and trainees in the field. So that's very exciting in 57 countries. So this has been an 18-month process so far, returning volunteers post-COVID from zero around the world. It's very, very, it just gives me great pride. And again, just such great committed people who are out there, and tremendously committed staff. And to be with staff now that they have volunteers, just the joy and pride that they have in bringing those volunteers back is also very palpable. We also have formal invitations from 14 countries for Peace Corps to start operations or renew operations. And we are expecting more in the months ahead. I just want to leave you with, there is tremendous demand for the Peace Corps. And we know the value of the Peace Corps. Conveying the value of the Peace Corps in terms that are both linked to the demand in the country, but also linked to that dividend that pays forward decades into the future and has real diplomatic value. And I had a string of ambassadors coming through my office during the Chiefs of Mission Conference from those countries that requested the Peace Corps, and a few that we've evaluated, saying, how can we get to yes? What can we do? And what I took away from that and what they conveyed to me was the urgency. The urgency of getting volunteers into some of those countries based on what they are seeing on the ground right now, and also based on that long-term goodwill and the long-term diplomatic importance of that people-to-people connection. So I do think as we are out talking about Peace Corps, we have an important role to play in elevating people's understanding of what the Peace Corps is and what the benefit is to the countries we serve in, to the volunteers themselves, and right back here in America. Along those lines, want to share that we did swear in the very first volunteers in Vietnam at the end of last year. There were 9 volunteers. They are fabulous and started small very intentionally and will be expanding. So they are all placed right around Hanoi. And the symbolic importance of that was palpable. It didn't matter how many volunteers were standing on that stage. The pride and the joy in getting them there after such an intensive effort that involved so many people who are probably on this call. So gratitude to you all for, everything that you did. But it really did strike me when I was there, even what 9 volunteers can mean to diplomatic relations and to rebuilding those connections. And just yesterday, I was in El Salvador signing that new country agreement that will welcome volunteers back to the country for the first time since 2016. It was incredibly powerful. There is a palpable, vibrant, infectious energy all throughout the Peace Corps right now. Because we are back, because there are so many exciting things happening, and really the teams are doing such an amazing job. I am also seeing really innovative work that's happening around the world in this post-pandemic reality. When I was in Indonesia, and this innovation is coming from our partners and the volunteers themselves, and really coming out of COVID, that creativity about how we expand the reach is just amazing. So in Indonesia, the Ministry of Religious Affairs hosts many volunteers, and they really emphasized how important it was to have native speakers engaging with their students across the Madrasah schools. They implemented the technology in classrooms around the country for our volunteers to be able to call in. So once a month, they call in. There are 400 schools. Call in to get an English language lesson from our different volunteers. The ministry is pitching these, advertising them, engaging with the schools to bring the students in, and the volunteers are there doing what they do best. Very exciting. We're also exploring side-by-side service, and what this means is working with volunteer organizations within countries that are supported by a variety of different actors, and having Peace Corps volunteers go into communities side by side with volunteers from that country. So we think there's tremendous excitement and potential around that, as well as some other areas we're looking at, like how professional certifications and other kinds of things to really lift what it is we are doing around the world. As you all know, one of Peace Corps' great beauties is the creativity and can-do spirit that is the heart of this agency, to be bold, to innovate, to break new ground. And really the key now is getting as many Americans as possible to sign up and to join us in order to truly meet the needs of our host community. As the Congressman mentioned, it has been a struggle. There are many, many reasons that we can point to, including gap in overseas service, the COVID hangover, right, as people are a little bit more cautious, going into uncertain environments, the strength of the labor market, and Peace Corps is not alone. Other service organizations like AmeriCorps, Teach for America, even the military, are really seeing that we need to fight to really get people back up and out there. The mental health of our recruits and potential recruits is also something that has arisen. It's something that I think we are all struggling with. Many of us have struggled with it ourselves, and through the pandemic. It has been a very traumatic time for all of us. And we see in the data that, really big challenges with our younger generations as well. Earlier this year, the Surgeon General warned of an epidemic of loneliness and isolation that has been an underappreciated public health crisis that has harmed individuals and societal health. He calls on the importance of service. And I think we all have seen how Peace Corps can be, just such an incredibly challenging thing to do, but really an opportunity to you know, get out there in the world and connect in a very powerful way. We want to make sure that we can get as many people safely into service as we can. In the environment following COVID, the medical clearance of applicants has grown tremendously in complexity. This is for a variety of reasons, but one of which is that the proportion of applicants requiring a mental health review has increased by 60% since 2019. This also indicates that receiving mental health services has been normalized, and that is terrific. And we are all very happy to see that. And we, as Peace Corps, have implemented some, really exciting ways to support people during their service. For your awareness, nearly 70% of those who have mental health histories that require a review do clear. Nearly 70% are clearing. So as Peace Corps, we have adapted, in terms of how we are looking at all of these things as well. But this is an extra layer of complexity that can prove daunting and discouraging to some recruits. But it is a very dynamic time as we see how some of these initial cohorts are doing once they get out in the field, and how we can best serve them. The new program that we have in place is a telecoaching service that is sort of below, if someone is not presenting with clinical level needs, they can request telecoaching support to help with some of the, just adjustment issues and other types of things that are typical in Peace Corps service. And we have someone who can walk through that with them and refer them to medical support if they need to. We are seeing tremendous utilization of this service, and it's been really well received. So as we look at recruitment, recruitment numbers are coming back due to a large variety of factors, including the tremendous work of our recruiters who are out there really pounding the pavement. We've got our bold invitation campaign. This year, we are hoping to get to 10,000 applications. We're currently at 9,200 with just a few weeks to go. That is an 87% increase from where we were at this point last year, which is incredible. But it is down still 30% from 2019, which was pre-pandemic. The good news is that we are also seeing more diversity in our applicant pool. We are consistently seeing 9% of our applications coming from Americans over the age of 50, which is terrific. It was typically around 4 or 5% pre-pandemic. And 43% are identifying as being from a minority community or a community of color. Also very exciting. I am also thrilled, and this is something we've been doing to really ramp up our recruitment efforts here in the United States. We have a group of 14 host country national staff who are here working with recruiters and really talking about their personal journey and why Peace Corps is important to them and their countries. And hearing it from the voices of people from the host country really does shift the narrative. It gives us access to different diaspora communities that we might have a harder time accessing otherwise. And it really does show and represent how Peace Corps is invited to those countries and how communities ask for volunteers and why it's important to them. So with all of that, I think I would like you to leave with this sense of knowing that we are pulling out all of the stops. We want to get to every American who wants to, is able to, so that they know about the Peace Corps and have a chance to serve. And we want to make sure that the diversity of our volunteers reflects the incredible, wonderful, beautiful diversity of our nation. So at the beginning, we shared the Bold Invitation campaign. I hope that you have been seeing it on social media. I hope you've been targeted specifically. It's amazing how some of the social media campaigns can really very finely target different populations. And we have been expanding our outreach in a very intentional way, both through this campaign and through our recruiting efforts. And we want different people to know, all people to know, that there is a place for them at the Peace Corps, and to really embrace the boldness of this mission, get out of their comfort zones and answer that call to serve. You may also start to see some of the ads that are being placed in airports. I've had people send me pictures from the metro here in Washington and on some bus platforms as well. So we are really working hard to raise that interest. I think most of you know that in addition to the traditional 2-year model of service, we also have some great Peace Corps response opportunities, and we've had tremendous success with our virtual service model, which is still in a pilot state, but we have almost 600 returned volunteers, many of whom are amongst you right now, who have been really providing very targeted technical expertise. And we're working with our posts to see how we integrate these different models to really reinforce the work of people at different points in their service. For example, our post, I believe it was Peru, it might have been Panama, had a program where we had a 2-year volunteer running a workshop for teachers. And then the teachers got up and presented their lesson and got feedback. We had a specialist from the United States listening in, taking notes, who was able to provide very targeted feedback one-on-one and coaching one-on-one following all of the training. And this was someone with special education experience. So just some really exciting ways that we can really leverage lots of different people's expertise. So I know I'm running out of time. I could go on for forever and ever. It's just such an exciting and important time. And I just want to reiterate that you, as part of the Peace Corps network, are so important. We need your help to gin up the energy and enthusiasm to get the word out and share that Bold Invitation campaign. If you're getting ads, we can send you the video or photos or anything that you need. And we also have, I think I've also mentioned previously, an ethical storytelling toolkit, which is very important in today's world, to make sure that any stories that we are sharing from our service are really told, with the permission of those we are telling the stories about, and in that spirit of cultural humility and partnership. As we move forward, we are looking at some more structured ways that we can better coordinate with returned volunteers to be advocates and recruiters, and we hope to share more about some of that in future conversations. We also have a very powerful Peace Corps Connect campaign that is asking people to sign up and get out into schools, high schools, so that we can open up those opportunities and get people thinking about Peace Corps even sooner. So with that, I will just, sign off, say I'm so grateful to all of you. I'm grateful for your enthusiasm, your hard work. I'm grateful for you showing up on a Friday night. to be a part of this. All of it shows that you care, showing up, being a part of the solution, and serving. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was really fantastic, much more than I think a lot of us were hoping for. I see that Congressman Garamendi is also still on the line, and I'd love to offer him the chance to react or respond to some of what you've shared. But I know that this is an amazing group this evening, by the way, and you probably haven't been able to follow the flurry of questions and comments in the chat. It's really a lot of great sharing there. But something I did see throughout is the a theme of how come Peace Corps is not a household name across the world? How come? Why are we still reminding people that there is still a Peace Corps? So if you or Congressman Garamendi would like to comment on that, I would love to know what you think it would take for this community to make Peace Corps that household name that it was in the 1960s again, and get the word out. And Congressman Garamendi, please jump in.
I'll take a shot at it. Carol, thank you so very much. Patty and I listened to your discussion, the extraordinary energy that you're expending and you're bringing to the office, to your colleagues that are working, and some really innovative new ideas. I guess I'll put it this way. I've been involved in public life for a long, long time. And I will tell you that the half-life of a good idea is incredibly short. And you've just got to keep reminding people of in this case, of the Peace Corps, the work it does. But people are moving on. The social media was discussed. What is the half-life of a thought on social media? Anybody watching cable television today? Whatever was on cable TV today will not be on cable TV tomorrow. So the rapidity of ideas, or really not even ideas, but of issues, moves so very, very fast now that the only way to counter that is to constantly beat the drum. And you need the drum beaters. And those are those of you that are on this thing tonight, the NPCA, the members, the return volunteers, the existing volunteers, the mother and fathers of volunteers, on and on. You just got to beat the drum. I'll let it go at that. Patty's got it. Here you go.
No, I just think that I think that the audience, the people that are listening are the key, because I have found that it's your personal stories, your willingness to go and to talk, that makes all of the difference. People still remember speeches I made, stories that I told, and they told them to their children. And you know, as you know, 4 of our children served in the Peace Corps. Well, my grandchildren are signed up for the Peace Corps, Carol. So we got a couple they said they're going to do what we did, and probably what you did with your husband. They're one's at Stanford, the other's at Cal. They're getting married in March because they're going in the Peace Corps this summer, and they're going to be teachers. They want to do it together. So it's those stories, those personal stories. It's hard to compete with the, all of the social media, but I am so glad you're taking a real shot at it, because they will become the best recruiters for you in the future. The volunteers that come back and keep telling their stories and have their blogs and bring people through their journey. So I think you're right on the right track, and it's a hard job, everybody. I think all of you know, and I just so admire. I don't know how you always look so fresh. She showed up at the White House picnic with us, and she had just gotten off of the airplane, and she looked like, as my grandmother said, she looked like a daisy. No, it was really good though. So just keep it up, everyone. And thank you, Dan. I remember very well when you, we really recruited every single senator and Congress member to become part of the Peace Corps caucus. So that's one-on-one. You know, we have to keep doing it. And but I'll tell you, the Congress knows about Peace Corps, and we just have to keep poking that. And Carol's been good about getting over there, and she's brought us into some of her recruitment programs. And half of the purpose is, yes, we'll get volunteers out of the staff, but it's educating the members. Where did their staff go? Oh, they're over talking to the Peace Corps. Oh, how's that going now? So it's just a constant message, but you've got a lot of converts out there. So what are we, 248,000 have served? Hey, they all have to, everybody needs to bring in one. I've done my part. Thank you.
Between you and John, you've done more than your part. Patty, thank
Yeah,
you so much
I
for
know.
jumping in. I'm so glad you could join the conversation. And Carol, I want to echo what Patty said on how hard this job has been for you, acting for those couple of years and for the last really since you took the reins. From our perspective, not having RPCVs returning from service is really difficult. We rely on that kind of lifeblood of an enthusiasm of a constant stream of people returning from service, and we can't wait for that to happen again next year. But I knew it took a lot of perseverance on your part and leadership to keep morale up and see Peace Corps through those difficult years without volunteers in the field. And congratulations on getting 2,000 back in the field. But please feel free to weigh in as well on what it takes to get Peace Corps back in the minds of your average American.
Great. Well, thank you. Look, it takes a village, and this Peace Corps community has stepped up in so many different ways. And, you know, that is our local staff, our teams at headquarters, just everyone digging deep. I think we all had to dig deep during the pandemic. The Peace Corps teams dug deep and really did the work to implement a lot of changes, some glamorous, some not so glamorous, but it has really paid off. So our teams are ready and just very excited about being in this place. And when you talk, Dan, about having volunteers in the field, we had 7,000 active recruiters on social media sharing their experiences with friends and family every single day when you had volunteers in the field. And losing that for a period of time and being at lower numbers now requires that we all then have to work that much harder to get there. The other thing that I will comment on is you know, this campaign, this marketing campaign that's happening right now is a sort of one-time infusion to really ramp up awareness. We have significant budget constraints, and we're not in a position to maintain this level of marketing going forward. So we are doing everything we can to maximize what we have, to be very strategic, you know, about those efforts, and to be very strategic about how, you know, we leverage every single, you know, penny that we have and every partnership, every relationship that we have as well. And that is requiring that we think a little bit differently about how we recruit through partner organizations, how we work with, you know, folks like the YMCA or others who might be, you know, with different organizations that we might not have otherwise been really thinking about as a recruiting partner, both for staff and for volunteers. So how do we become a force multiplier? Because the sort of, and it's an interesting dynamic because you need a force multiplier to build the awareness. But people also really want and need the nurture and care to get through the process, to talk to somebody, and to really understand what it might be like. You know, and so with all of those things, we think about how do we leverage staff in country? You know, how both, you know, the people we're bringing here, but also once someone is invited, to generate that energy and enthusiasm for them to stay in the process. A lot of universities have local alumni host gatherings. I know a lot of RPCVs have done that on their own. Alana, I see you're here. Thank you for everything that you are doing, and congratulations on PBS. I was scrolling through some of the chats while the Congressman and Patty were talking. And Bill, I saw your comments over there as well. Every little bit helps. And so if you have thoughts, ideas about particularly the force multiplier, right? We can get out there, and all of us, and I do encourage all of you to get out there, talk to whatever organizations you are a part of, and that will go a long way. But how do we then encourage those organizations to get the word out more broadly?
I think we're often very good at telling our stories in this community, Carol, but often we are telling them to each other. So I think there are some great ways to get to fly the flag outside of our community. And I see Glenn Bloomhorst, my predecessor, just shared in the chat the Peace Corps Park that is currently under development. That's going to be a fabulous piece of infrastructure to have that partnership with YMCA, where we're actually in communities and you have Peace Corps opportunities at a local level. I think could balance some of what else I saw in the chat, the fact that we no longer have as many regional recruiting offices and infrastructure. I think that's very budgetarily concerned, but a lot of opportunities, and of course the towering task as well. Carol, I promised you and your team that I'd have you done on a Friday evening by 9 p.m. Eastern, and I wonder if you'll entertain just one more question. Sure. I see a lot of people here who have been very involved in the climate crisis, advocacy around climate change and adaptation, and I know that there's a lot of passion in our community for leaving the world a better place for our children. So I wonder how you mentioned this in your remarks. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about how that's going to look as Peace Corps rolls back into environmental programs, or if it's going to be cross-cutting across all sectors. What is the idea around climate change?
Well, so like everything with Peace Corps, we will have a broad strategy and tools and resources that can really be adapted to whatever the circumstances are and whatever the local environment is experiencing, the host country. So we will have those tools available for all sectors. We all know that an English teacher can teach words about climate change and can have can have after school programs and other things, but more broadly, where I'm starting to see opportunity in a more robust way is around really linking some of the host country volunteerism efforts with our volunteers serving side by side, getting out there, doing that climate work together. Tonga is the first country that has adopted a full sort of climate program, and they are doing just this. There was a great story on the Peace Corps website or social media about the work that they are doing, getting folks out there, seeing a lot of interest around mangrove restoration, which is something that we've done for quite a long time. But again, how do we do that at a broader scale with that urgency? And that requires leveraging groups of young people who are looking for ways to make a difference themselves, and doing it hopefully in a formalized way, so that as they enter into this space, they are getting the technical skills. They are getting something for their resume as well, so that it is a pathway to employment. And a pathway for them to other opportunities. And I do want to go back, Dan, to the question about recruitment. One of the things we are hearing loudly and clearly is, how do we show what Peace Corps does for people in terms of their careers? And this is particularly important in reaching underserved communities, first generation families, parents who fought very hard to provide a better life for their children, and really making that case. And so as you're telling your story, whether it's on social media or otherwise, tell the story of how Peace Corps impacted your career and provided a pathway for you and what that meant for you. And, really mentor, help open up, some of those other opportunities as people are starting to come back. Our first 2-year volunteers will be back in March of 2024. So that's very exciting. Some small cohorts, but that will start. So I can say that the climate work, there's just tremendous enthusiasm. And look out for an announcement at the end of this month about an exciting initiative we'll be doing.
Fabulous. Well, Carol, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to leave it there, but I want to thank you for your leadership and for spending a little extra time, even more than we had budgeted for this evening. Really, I think that I speak for the entire community in thanking you for your commitment and impressive return to service around the world. So good luck.
Great.
And
thank you
you're
so
welcome
much.
to stay on too.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate you.